The 2026 NBA trade deadline is about 10 days away, and this year it's been different so far. We've only seen one trade go down between the Atlanta Hawks and the Washington Wizards, and the biggest player in that trade was Trae Young, and he hasn't even played a single game yet for the Washington Wizards. But this is reminding me a little bit of what happened a couple years ago in 2022, where we just saw a flurry of deals in trade deadline week and a massive trade deadline day, and I think that's going to happen this year here in 2026. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about one trade target for every single NBA team this year at the deadline. And I actually went to Twitter for this one as well, and I asked you guys, just give me a trade target for your favorite team. And I'm going to mention if I agree or disagree with the trade target you brought up. And if you want to be featured in maybe the next one of these that I asked you guys on Twitter, you can follow me down below. I give all my basketball thoughts over there kind of in real time as some of these games are going on. And if you do enjoy the videos, I'd appreciate you dropping a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you're not already. Let's get into that. So we're going to start off with the Philadelphia 76ers. This one comes from Kevin Thompson on Twitter, and he mentions that Trae Jones should be a trade target for the 76ers. And I actually don't hate the idea of Trae Jones in Philadelphia, because when I'm watching the 76ers, although they do have four guards, I don't really think they have somebody that could be a floor general when Tyrese Maxey's off the floor. I'm not a big fan of Quentin Grimes' passing ability. VJ Edgecombe is still ways away to being a floor general playmaker at all at the NBA level, and Jared McCain is also somebody that benefits being off the ball as a movement shooter. So they haven't really had a good backup point guard this year, and that's why Tyrese Maxey's had to play pretty much a league high 40 minutes a night as a 25-year-old. Like, he's playing 40 minutes randomly on back-to-backs, and I'm just worried about the mileage on Tyrese Maxey right now as we get later into his career when Paul George and Embiid are no longer in Philadelphia. And he's the main guy there. So I do think Philadelphia could benefit from somebody like Trae Jones, who's a really good backup point guard that is probably never going to start in Chicago either, given that they do have Josh Giddey. And I have no idea what Chicago's going to do at the deadline. They're probably going to just re-sign all their expiring contracts at the end of the year. But Trae Jones this season is putting up 12.5 points, 6 assists, shooting 55% from the field, and averaging 3 rebounds a night. He's making $8 million next year, fully guaranteed, and $8 million the year after that. Philadelphia could definitely use a Quentin Grimes as matching salary for Trae Jones at the deadline. That could be a win-win trade for both teams, that Chicago does want to extend Quentin Grimes at the end of the year, who makes a little bit more sense next to Josh Giddey than Trae Jones would. But if Philadelphia wanted to keep Quentin Grimes as well, they can definitely get there with the Kelly Oubre matching salary, but you might have to kick in a first-round pick given how good Trae Jones has been playing, and he's under a great contract as well. But I'm a big fan of this trade target for the 76ers this year at the deadline. I don't know about you guys, but growing up, I never really knew what jewelry to get. I didn't know if I wanted to rock a bracelet or a necklace, and as I got older, I wanted to try out different things, and I'm excited to talk about GLD with you guys today. So GLD is sponsoring this video, but they are coming in at a perfect time for me, in my opinion. I wanted to switch things up. Their presentation is clean. It comes in a nice box, and then you also get a travel bag with whatever you order. And I feel like just buying jewelry in the past felt like a nightmare, and things can be clean with GLD. So I ended up getting their rope bracelet, and I'm excited to start wearing it. And this is now high quality, affordable jewelry that I can try out on different occasions. It fits cleanly around my wrist. They have different sizes, and I feel like it's just elevating my style. It's been worn by Justin Bieber, Micah Parsons, Malik Neighbors, Kevin Durant. And the coolest thing about them, they have special collaborations with the NFL. So you can get an NFL pendant on your piece. Plus, they also have official collabs with the NBA, WNBA, MLB, NCAA, MLS, and even DC Comics as well. And new customers get 50% off. It's an amazing deal with the link in the description and the pinned comment below, and you can use my code SROS. You can see it on your screen now at GLD.com. Link in the description and the pinned comment below, and thank you to GLD for sponsoring today's video. But it mentions here for the Portland Trailblazers that they need to push for Domantas Sabonis. Him and Klingon would be quite the duo to have long term. Now, this is definitely an interesting trade idea for the Portland Trailblazers, a team that is right around 500 this year, but they have had so many injuries. We know that Damian Lillard was going to log them 0 minutes this year. Denny is currently dealing with a back issue that's kind of been lingering over these last few weeks. Jeremy Grant and Drew Holiday and Scoot Henderson have missed some time this year as well. I don't think Portland needs to rush anything and go after somebody like Domantas Sabonis, although I do think it could be an intriguing frontcourt with Sabonis and Klingon, because Klingon does show some floor spacing ability this year, and he could be still the main rim protector. But how do you feel about Domantas Sabonis guarding guys on the perimeter? I love Klingon as a defender as well. I just don't know if he can guard guys at a high level on the perimeter just yet. But if it doesn't really cost you much to go out and get somebody like Domantas Sabonis, maybe it just involves Jeremy Grant, he gets rerouted to a third team. Maybe it involves Drew Holiday, he gets rerouted to a third team, and a little bit of draft capital. Okay, I could see that. You're just buying low on somebody who's been an all-NBA guy over the last few years, who's dealt with some injuries this year, and Sacramento should go in a different direction. A lot of you guys also mentioned Jaren Jackson Jr. as a trade target for the Portland Trailblazers. I like that idea a ton. I think they have the assets and the capital to go out and get Triple J. A lot of you also mentioned Mikal Bridges, who's been linked in the Portland Trailblazers trade rumors as of late because they liked him when they had Damian Lillard. And this is how we can orchestrate a 3-team deal, Giannis to New York, and Milwaukee can get their picks back from Portland. As much as I would like that as a Knicks fan, I just don't think Mikal has enough trade value right now to net Milwaukee back any of their first round picks. Maybe one of them. I think two is a little bit too much given what the value those picks can show over these next few years. I don't hate the idea of Mikal Bridges in Portland. I just think there's a lot of moving parts to that right now. But hey, maybe we do see Giannis get traded this year at the deadline, and maybe Mikal Bridges is a Portland Trailblazer. This one comes here from Playoff Buck. He says, if the Bucks are set on keeping Giannis Antetokounmpo, then Ja Morant. Now, for what I've been seeing from the Memphis Grizzlies in their asking price for Ja Morant, it's pretty much what Trae Young went for, plus a first-round pick. I'm not the biggest fan of that for the Milwaukee Bucks. I've been pretty adamant here on the channel talking about how the Milwaukee Bucks should trade Giannis Antetokounmpo, which I know it's easy for me to say. I'm not the one seeing Giannis in the locker room and in the building every single day. I don't have to deal with the backlash from the fan base if I trade away Giannis. But if you're going to keep Giannis, do not trade for somebody like Ja Morant, in my opinion, unless it's matching salary, unless it's Kyle Kuzma and Bobby Portis, sure. And if Memphis is interested in Kevin Porter Jr. in that trade, fine, I would do that. I'm not trading away Ryan Rollins. I'm not trading away a 2031 first-round pick for Ja Morant, who's dealt with a bunch of injuries over the last few years. I don't really think elevates your ceiling at all whatsoever. If you want to call up Memphis and say, we'll do a swap on our first-round pick this year as well with you, so say Milwaukee's first-rounder is at number 4, New Orleans is at number 1, so Milwaukee keeps the 4th overall pick. They would swap with Memphis. Sure, I would do that. But that's the most of it right now. I don't want this team to gut their draft capital or gut their roster for Ja Morant, who I don't really think is a needle mover for Milwaukee whatsoever. Plus, we already did this with Damian Lillard and Drew Holiday. I just don't think Ja Morant is going to change anything for Milwaukee going forward. I think they should sell at the deadline and not buy, even if they're keeping Giannis. Justin Talks Hoops mentions, for the Chicago Bulls, it's Zion Williamson or bust. Now, I actually like the idea of Zion Williamson in Chicago as a buy low guy. Zion has a very interesting contract right now that was kind of built into that deal that you can cut him in 2027 or 2028 and not have to pay a dime of guaranteed money. He's making $39.5 million this year, $42 million next year, and then $44 million in 2028. Chicago is exactly where they want to be every single year. They're 23 and 23. They're probably going to be in the play-in tournament right now. But what Chicago has, plenty of matching salary to go out and get Zion Williamson, which can now be roped into a 3-team trade maybe, because I don't know how New Orleans feels about these expiring contracts, but maybe another team would give New Orleans something in exchange, and now you're actually netting a positive for Zion Williamson. So you have Nikola Vucevic's $21.5 million. You have Zach Collins' $18 million, Kevin Huerter's $17.9 million, Kobe White's $12.8 million, Ayo Dosunmu $7.5 million, and Javon Carter $6.8 million. Maybe there's a third team involved. Maybe Dosunmu's going somewhere else. Maybe Kobe White's going somewhere else, and New Orleans can now reshuffle their roster with more guys that are just available for them on a night-to-night basis. This year has been a disaster for the Pelicans, so they may just want guys that will actually play for them in the second half of the year because they don't own their first-round pick. For Chicago, I think there are some limitations to maybe Zion Williamson and Josh Giddey out there at the same time with Matas Buzelis, who should be your main building block at the moment, but Zion is 25 years old. He'd be the biggest name star you would have since maybe Derrick Rose or at least Jimmy Butler from the 2017 season. And Zion is averaging 22 points this year, 6 rebounds, 3.5 assists, shooting 58% from the field. It stinks for New Orleans too, because I just can't quit on Zion whatsoever. I still think he could be a top 25 player in the league. He just needs to stay healthy. And I just don't know if that's ever going to come to fruition in New Orleans. He might just need to change his scenery. And I think Chicago's in a good spot to trade for Zion Williamson as well. I don't think Chicago should add in any of their first round picks for Zion, but they have Portland's lottery protected first round pick this year. There's a chance they are the 8th seed. They lose in round number 1 to OKC. And that's the 15th overall pick. I feel like that's a fine enough trade value for Zion Williamson, expiring money, the 15th overall pick, maybe a swap down the line as well. But if Chicago has a chance to get Zion, I kind of love this idea. Also, maybe Zion wouldn't play as much in the second half. You can rest him on a night-to-night basis, get a top 10 pick if you're Chicago for 2027, and now we can actually get excited about a roster with Zion, a top 10 pick, Buzelis, and Giddey next year. Nick mentions here, for the Cleveland Cavaliers, Pascal Siakam to Cleveland. I don't know if it makes sense at all financially or personnel-wise for the Pacers, but let's make it happen. So in a perfect world, I actually love the idea of Pascal Siakam at the 4 and Evan Mobley at the 5. One, this is very tough to do within Division 2. I don't think Indiana is in the market right now to trade away Pascal Siakam. I think they would love the idea of Jared Allen on their roster right now, but you would definitely have to overpay for Pascal Siakam for Indiana to even think about this at the moment. Cleveland does not really have any draft capital whatsoever to get this deal done. They're not trading away Evan Mobley for Siakam. They're not trading away Donovan Mitchell for Siakam. And why would Indiana want Darius Garland whatsoever? So yeah, in a perfect world, you can somehow get this done. Maybe it's a 3-team trade, but I just don't see Indiana trading Siakam this year at the deadline. It's not the worst idea. It's not just because Siakam is 31 years old right now. He's going to be 32 next year. He'll be making $48 million next year, $52 million in 2028. He's extension eligible soon as well. So I don't know if Indiana is going to commit long-term money to somebody like Siakam into his mid to late 30s. So you could sell high on the asset right now, given that Halliburton is still on the younger side. He might need a rehab year and just kind of a gap year to get right off the Achilles tear next season. But it's easy for me to say this behind the camera. I don't think they're trading away Pascal Siakam. I think if you're Cleveland, you still test the Jared Allen trade market, and maybe that's a team like the Pacers that wants Jared Allen. I just think they should trade away Jared Allen and move Mobley to the 5, or trade Darius Garland and move Donovan Mitchell to the 1, but we might not see that till the offseason. Frederick mentions here for the Boston Celtics that Miles Turner and Kevin Porter Jr. to Boston for Anthony Simons, Jordan Walsh, and some draft picks. So this is an interesting trade for sure. I love the idea of Miles Turner in Boston. He's kind of exactly what Joe Mazzulla would want. He's a more reliable Kristaps Porzingis in terms of health. I don't think their defense is too far apart. When Kristaps Porzingis is as healthy as he can get, I think he's a better defender than Miles Turner, and I think he's better than Miles Turner. But Miles Turner is just way more reliable in terms of his availability on the basketball court. Turner's value is definitely taking a dip this year, now making over $25 million a year for the next 3 seasons after this year, including a $29 million player option in 2029. But if Milwaukee's willing to trade away somebody like Miles Turner, how perfect of a lineup would that be in Boston if you're able to have Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, the Jays, and Miles Turner at the 5, who could play this Mazzulla ball offense, who's shooting 39% from 3 this year. Kevin Porter Jr. could be a free agent at the end of the year. I don't know if Boston really wants somebody like Kevin Porter Jr. If you're Milwaukee, you get Anthony Simons' expiring money. You get Jordan Walsh, who's under a great contract moving forward, is still just 21 years old and would be a great swingman for Milwaukee moving forward. He's just making $2.4 million next season. And if there's some draft capital involved, I think I would listen to this if I'm the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't know if Boston would want to commit to somebody like Miles Turner right now. I think they would want somebody a little bit more physical, a better rebounder down low as well. I don't know if Boston is willing to trade away first-round picks in this deal either, because they may view Jordan Walsh as like the second best asset in this deal. But it's not the worst idea in the world. I like the idea of Miles Turner in the Boston Celtics offense and defense right now, who's not somebody you're like breaking the bank for, and you can make it work financially going forward now that you're not paying a Drew Holiday or a Kristaps Porzingis. So yeah, Celtics fans, let me know what you guys think about this one, and Bucks fans, let me know as well. Would you accept this? Joe Hub mentions here Malik Monk to the Los Angeles Clippers. So I got a ton of LA Clippers trade targets. Benedict Mathurin was a popular one. I like Malik Monk though, because you can easily get to the matching salary of Malik Monk with Bogdan Bogdanovic. Monk is 27 years old. He's been playing some really good basketball as of late for the Kings. He had 23 points against the Trailblazers. Recently had 19 points on good efficiency against a really good defense in the Detroit Pistons. He's making $18 million this year, $20 million next year, and $21.5 million in 2028. We know Sacramento wants to get off of this contract long term. And if the trade value is this low and all it takes is maybe matching salary and like a second rounder, I think the Clippers should be all over this. Bogdan Bogdanovic is making $16 million. You can kick in Chris Paul on this trade and he can get bought out as well. And we're right there at the matching salary. And Malik Monk can just be this really good microwave scorer for you off the bench, a great 6-man option for you as you get into the playoffs. It's an additional asset next year as well. I don't know how they feel about the $21 million player option in 2028, because we all know that the Clippers want to have maximum cap space in the 2027 free agency. They basically want a clean cap sheet outside of Ivica Zubac then. And I'm pretty sure Malik Monk would opt into that $21.5 million player option in 2028 when he's going to be around 31 years old. But if all it takes is Chris Paul and Bogdan Bogdanovic, this is a no-brainer for me if I'm the Clippers. We have an in-division trade target here from Sagi, and he mentions Herb Jones to the Memphis Grizzlies, which I don't hate this idea for either team. I do think the Grizzlies would have some assets that the Pelicans would like, and I do think the Pelicans should trade away Herb Jones if he has positive trade value here at the deadline. The Herb Jones contract does get a little bit expensive over the next 4 years after this year. It's all guaranteed money, 14.8 next year. Then it goes up to 20.8 in 2028, $22 million in 2029, and then $24 million as a player option in 2030 when he's going to be around 32 years old. Herb Jones has not been a good offensive player this year, but he's exactly what the Grizzlies love as this amazing perimeter defender as a wing who they could pair up with Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. If the value isn't that high for Herb Jones and all it costs them is maybe one first-round pick and matching salary, I would do this if I were the Memphis Grizzlies. Maybe it's KCP's contract and a first-round pick, sure. But if it's going to cost multiple first-round picks and multiple young players, I just don't think Herb Jones fits the timeline with the Memphis Grizzlies right now. Sleeper Hawks mentions here for the Atlanta Hawks that, so Giannis is obvious, but could Zubac be elite in Atlanta? And I do think the Atlanta Hawks would look for that center upgrade. I don't think they're fully set on Onyeka Okongwu as like the main rim protector long-term, although I think Okongwu has been really good for them this season. It makes all the sense in the world for them to at least call the Bucks for Giannis Antetokounmpo, given they had that swap with New Orleans and Milwaukee this year, and plenty of matching salary and intriguing young contracts. Zubac would be great in Atlanta. This is what Quinn Snyder and this front office wants to preach: physicality, switchability, and rim protection. And Zubac is a lot more reliable out there than what Kristaps Porzingis has been so far. We've seen Christian Koloko kind of step up for this team. Mohamed Gay in a pinch at times this year for the team. How about somebody rock solid as Zubac? I just think the price tag might be too expensive. The Clippers might not even field any phone calls for Zubac right now, given they're trying to make the playoffs and have been a really good team over the last few weeks. Zubac is under a fantastic contract though. $18 million this year, so you can easily get to that matching salary. $19.5 million in 2027 and $20.9 million in 2028. Fully guaranteed, no player option that he got to opt out of. He's been up and down this year for the Clippers, but he was just such a monster player recently against the LA Lakers, where he was arguably the best player on the floor. 18 points, 19 rebounds. He's 28 years old. Zubac would make sense on almost every team in the NBA, so yeah, I like this for the Atlanta Hawks. I just think it's going to cost way too much. This person here mentions for the Miami Heat, Immanuel Quickley. And don't look now, but Immanuel Quickley has been playing some really good basketball as of late for the Toronto Raptors. He's up to 17 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists on the season. But over Quickley's last 12 games, a decent sample size, he's averaging 17 points, 5.5 assists, 1.5 steals, and shooting 39% from 3. I'm sure the Raptors are still not the biggest fan of this Immanuel Quickley contract, making $32.5 million every year for the next 3 years after this season. I think Immanuel Quickley would be great in Miami. I'm just not sure what the trade would look like. Could Andrew Wiggins go back to his home country of Canada? Sure, I think that makes a ton of sense for the Toronto Raptors. A good defender, a good three-point shooter. I think the Raptors have been very happy with Jamal Shed this year. I think they've been happy with Scotty Barnes running the offense. Although it sometimes has its limitations, I don't think the Raptors will trade Immanuel Quickley. I thought maybe there was a Trae Young trade out there or a Ja Morant trade out there. I think there would have to be a better point guard for them on the market. They've been linked to Domantas Sabonis as well if they wanted to use that Quickley matching salary. I think they're really happy with how Quickley has been playing as of late. Maybe he ends up getting traded by the deadline. I just think the odds of that are really low. I think Toronto is happy with their roster going into the playoffs. They think they could probably make it to the conference finals this year. They're probably going to be in the market for a big. For the Charlotte Hornets, Worm Guy mentions that they should target Jaren Jackson Jr. for Miles Bridges. Would be like a shot of nitro for this team. I mean, yeah, Triple J would be an insane upgrade over Miles Bridges this year at the deadline. Jaren Jackson Jr. is still just 26 years old. He still could be one of the best defensive players in the NBA. The contract does get expensive, but Charlotte can afford it. He's going to be making over $50 million every year from 2028 to 2030. Is he going to be a little bit overpaid? Probably for his offensive limitations and his rebounding limitations as well. But you get Jaren Jackson Jr. with Con Knipple, Brandon Miller, and LaMelo Ball around him. I am already in about the Charlotte Hornets. I would be even more in if they were able to get something like that done. I wouldn't trade away any of those three in a Triple J trade. Maybe Memphis would be intrigued about T.Jon Salon. Maybe they'd be intrigued about Sion James, Kalkbrenner, McNeely. Charlotte does have some additional draft capital moving forward that they could trade. I don't think that they would end up making this trade in season, but I do think Memphis would look to trade Jaren Jackson Jr. after the draft lottery when we know where teams are picking. Like, would you rather have Caleb Wilson in Charlotte or Jaren Jackson Jr.? Like, we can have that discussion if the Hornets were to get the 4th overall pick. But the way that they're playing, they might make the playoffs this year as an 8 seed in the Eastern Conference. I love that as a trade target for them. It might be tough to pull off this year at the deadline, though. Might be more of an offseason trade target. AB mentions here for the Utah Jazz that they could give Benedict Mathurin a change of scenery. And I don't hate that idea whatsoever. I don't think Utah should be in the market in trading away any valuable draft capital for Benedict Mathurin. If it's like matching salary that could be intriguing to Indiana. Maybe it's a flyer on one of the younger players that have fallen out of the Jazz rotation, like a Taylor Hendricks, sure. But I just think Benedict Mathurin doesn't really fit what Utah is going for right now. They have Lauri Markkanen at the moment. They have Keontae George, who's kind of been a number one guy. Benedict Mathurin might just steal a bunch of valuable developmental reps from Ace Bailey going forward. And are you willing to give him a decent contract in the offseason when he's going to be a restricted free agent? I don't think any team is going to break the bank giving him an offer sheet this summer, so he might just play on the qualifying offer next year. And maybe if Utah is trying to make the playoffs next year, Mathurin would definitely be a great six-man option for their team. I'd rather Utah go in a different direction. I'd rather them just trade away Yusuf Nurkic, because you got to trade him if you can. Kevin Love, if there's a market, George Niang, Svi Mikhailiuk, any one of those guys this year at the deadline, I would trade and just try to give as many reps to your young core in the second half of the season and hopefully keep your draft pick as well. But if it doesn't really cost you much, why not? Laurie Murray mentions here for the Sacramento Kings. Everyone is thinking Kuminga for my Kings, and rightfully so, but what about Rob Dillingham? Yeah, I feel like there's an obvious trade out there that would benefit both teams. The Minnesota Timberwolves trading away Mike Conley and Rob Dillingham for Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder is exactly what the Minnesota Timberwolves need at the point guard position. He could be a good defender. We saw him be a good defender for Detroit in the playoffs last year against the New York Knicks. He could be a floor general. He's not going to make dumb turnovers. He could be a solid enough shooter for you as well next to Anthony Edwards, and it's just such an upgrade over Mike Conley and Rob Dillingham. And if you're Sacramento, why not? You get out of the Mike Conley contract next year. Rob Dillingham at least still has some potential and can at least be somebody that you can invest in as a former top 10 pick in this league and maybe turn around his career. You can give him the valuable touches and reps going forward for a team that's probably going to be tanking in the second half. He's 21 years old. I think this is a win-win trade for both teams, and I think Dillingham should be on the Kings' radar if they were to trade away Dennis Schroeder. This person mentions here for the New York Knicks that it should be Saddiq Bey for them, which I like that idea as well for the New York Knicks. We know they've been linked to Saddiq Bey and like Jose Alvarado and Yves Missi from the New Orleans Pelicans. You can get to the Saddiq Bey contract with Gershon Yabusele. Now, the Knicks should not be trading away a first-round pick for Saddiq Bey. They need to keep all the first-round picks and all the swaps they can if there's ever a bigger fish, maybe Giannis, that comes available down the line. What the Knicks will have this year, the Washington Wizards second-round pick, and there's a really good chance that's the 31st overall pick in the draft. The Knicks could definitely dangle that in a Saddiq Bey trade with Gershon Yabusele or Pacomi Dadier in an offer. The Knicks will also have the 52nd overall pick in the second round at the moment and the 59th overall pick in the second round. So maybe you trade 2 to 3 seconds, including the 31st overall pick, which is essentially a first rounder that New Orleans could also use to get back in the first round on the night of the draft. The Knicks would get 2 playoff runs from Saddiq Bey. He's got that Nova connection like Bridges, Hart, and Brunson do as well. So yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. I don't think Saddiq Bey really has that much value on the Pelicans this year, but maybe they wait and see if they can get something a little bit more valuable from Saddiq Bey at the deadline. Because yeah, like the OKC Thunder come in the room and they want Saddiq Bey, or the San Antonio Spurs, they can easily outbid the New York Knicks. Mason Foster mentions here for the LA Lakers that Andrew Wiggins would solve all their problems. And I think Andrew Wiggins would be one of the more intriguing players that could be on the market this year at the deadline. Wiggins has a $30 million player option for the 2027 season. You might think he's going to opt into that. I don't know. What if he opts out and some team gives him 3 years, $75 million, or 3 years, $80+ million, and Wiggins gets way more guaranteed money on maybe the last big deal of his career? He's 30 years old. I know that makes me feel old at the moment. He's averaging 15 points this year, 5 rebounds, shooting 47% from the field, 39% from three, can guard multiple positions. He played well for the Golden State Warriors in the biggest moment in the 2022 NBA Finals. We know that the Miami Heat kind of want this open, clear cap sheet at the moment, so they might not be able to extend Wiggins and you get out of that $30 million potential player opt-in this offseason. The Lakers can easily give the Miami Heat some matching salary as well. I think if the Heat were going to trade Wiggins to the Lakers and they were getting back like Maxi Kleber, Gabe Vincent, or maybe Jared Vanderbilt or somebody like that, the Lakers would definitely have to kick in a first-round pick. And if you're the Miami Heat, why not? Take the Lakers 2031 or 2032 first-round pick if they're willing to give you that for Andrew Wiggins. But if not, I think some other team would give them a first-round pick for Wiggins, and I think it makes sense for the Heat to trade Wiggins. You never know what can happen in the playoffs, but I don't think the Heat are going to make it to the conference finals this year. Maybe I'm wrong in a few months. For the Magic, this person mentions Kobe White. And yeah, Kobe White would be a great addition to almost any team this year at the deadline. It is tough for the Orlando Magic to pull this off. They would have to trade away Tyus Jones, which they're definitely fine with doing that. Maybe Jonathan Isaac would be in this deal as well, or something like that, who's only making $8 million in guaranteed money next year. But you've got to include some type of draft capital, as the Orlando Magic do not own their first round pick this year from the Desmond Bane trade. So maybe they would kick in their 2027 first round pick swap. Maybe they would trade away a a 2032 first round pick, but that'd be incredibly risky given that you're most likely going to get priced out of Coby White this offseason. The Magic got to worry about the second apron very soon, with Wagner, Bane, and Suggs already making decent money next year, over $30 million each. And then Paolo Banchero is about to go up from $15 million to $41.5 million. And they're going to be looming in the second apron. So you're probably not able to give Coby White an extension. So I like the player value of Coby White. You just got to go out and trade for somebody that's way more cost effective and at least under control for at least the 2027 season. Avery Gomez mentions here for the Dallas Mavericks that Andrew Nembhard would be a top trade target to unite him with Ryan Nembhard, his brother. And yeah, any team would love Andrew Nembhard this year at the deadline, but I just don't think the Indiana Pacers would trade away Andrew Nembhard unless you're overpaying 180 cents on the dollar for him. As Nembhard is still 26 years old, he's averaging 17 points, 7.5 assists this year. We know he could be a playoff riser as he did that last year for the Indiana Pacers in round number 1 against the Bucks, in round number 2 against Cleveland. Struggled a little bit against the Knicks, but was still a solid player for them against the Thunder in the NBA Finals. He's making $19 million next year and $20.9 million in 2028. So Indiana, like I said, would have no reason to trade him unless you're trading them like Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford and draft capital. They're just not doing that whatsoever. I would love the idea of Andrew Nembhard playing with his brother Ryan Nembhard in Dallas, or at least playing off of Cooper Flagg. I think that would do wonders for Cooper Flagg's development. The price is just going to be way too high. Brooklyn Fred mentions here that he would love to see his Nets try to get Ron Holland if the Pistons go after Michael Porter Jr. as a secondary scorer. And I would definitely enjoy some Drake Powell, Ron Holland defensive possessions. Ron Holland does have, I think, a limited ceiling as an offensive player, but who knows what the next few years can unfold, right? He's shooting 42% from the field, 25% from 3. If we go back to the G League Ignite, last year as a rookie, this year as a sophomore, Ron Holland doesn't have much of a track record as being a good three-point shooter, which could come back to bite Detroit in the playoffs as they don't have the best three-point shooting roster right now, even though they are the best team in the Eastern Conference. Yes, I think Ron Holland would intrigue Brooklyn a ton, but I feel like if Detroit actually went out and made a trade for Michael Porter Jr., Jaden Ivey would be involved in this deal instead. Jaden Ivey is 23 years old. He's a restricted free agent at the end of the year. He's been outplayed by Dennis Jenkins. Yes, he's still recovering from all these injuries he suffered over the last 365 days. And potentially with Detroit having to max out Jalen Duren this offseason, Asar Thompson is an extension eligible. I think they would like to have Ron Holland over the next 2 years under this cost-effective deal. So yeah, Ron Holland would be great in Brooklyn. I don't think they would trade him away. I mean, you never say never. Maybe they'd rather keep Jaden Ivey and trade away Ron Holland. I guess Pistons fans, if it came down to one of those two, let me know which one you think they would move or who you'd want to see moved, if any, for Michael Porter Jr. CD Lamb's burner mentions here for the Denver Nuggets, Ayo Dosunmu, hopefully for Zeke Naji and Julian Strawther. Now, Julian Strawther has gotten a ton of DNPs this year, but I was really excited about him going into the 2026 season. He did just have a really good game as of late against the Milwaukee Bucks, where he had 20 points and by far the best game of the season. The Nuggets have had their fair share of injuries as of late, and Julian Strawther actually started in that game. And I think Strawther would be an intriguing young piece for the Chicago Bulls moving forward. He's making just $2.6 million this year, $4.8 million next year, and could be a breakout candidate. Zeke Naji has actually been playing some of the better basketball of his career since Nikola Jokic got hurt, but is still under a negative contract right now, in my opinion. $8 million this year, $7.5 million next year, and a $7.5 million player option in 2028. Now, if the Denver Nuggets are willing to throw in a future first-round pick, I would definitely do this if I were the Chicago Bulls. Denver could trade away their 2031 pick swap, but that's really it at the moment. That would intrigue me if I were the Chicago Bulls, but that's really it. I need a first-round pick or some type of swap to take on that Zeke Naji contract. Now, if Peyton Watson was on the table, yeah, you don't have to throw in any draft capital for an Ayo Dosunmu trade. I think Ayo Dosunmu would be perfect around Nikola Jokic, the way that he's been shooting the ball this year and how Bruce Brown has been kind of disappointing. Christian Brown has also been disappointing this year as well. Dosunmu is having a career year, 51% from the field, 45% from 3, and 85% from the free throw line. But this Denver roster is going to continue to get expensive, and even more expensive if they give Peyton Watson his fair market value on an extension this offseason. And this might only be a rental. I don't really think it's worth trading away your only tradable swap for a rental this year at the deadline. Scoop mentions here for the Indiana Pacers that a package around Benedict Mathurin, Jarris Walker for Daniel Gafford and Najee Marshall would be ideal. I think Indiana would have to kick in some type of draft capital in this trade, just because Najee Marshall and Gafford, I think, are way more valuable assets than Benedict Mathurin, who, like I mentioned earlier, needs an extension at the end of the year. And Jarris Walker has had some better games as of late. He's still 22 years old, but I don't think has much value as a Gafford or Marshall as proven commodities in this league. Walker's only making $8.4 million on the final year of his team rookie deal next year, so he fits the timeline with Cooper Flagg. Benedict Mathurin could definitely be another good scorer. He's a better offensive player than Najee Marshall. And I think Najee Marshall, under his contract, making about $9 million next year for Indiana, and Daniel Gafford as well, who's an upgrade at the center position, makes a ton of sense. So I think this could be somewhat realistic for the Indiana Pacers. They would just have to kick in a first-round pick, in my opinion, probably a 2027 unprotected first. You'd assume Indiana's going to be good next year, so I think they're going to be fine trading that away. I see mentions here for the Pelicans that Peyton Watson should be on their radar. It's funny because Peyton Watson has been one of the best players in the NBA, it feels like, since Nikola Jokic got hurt. He's averaging 14 points, 5 rebounds this year, shooting 42% from three. And if you know anything about Peyton Watson and what he was at UCLA, where he averaged like 3 points, shooting 30% from the field, this is one of the more impressive developmental paths we have seen from any NBA player. He just had 35 points the other night. Over his last 12 games, he is averaging 23 points, 6 rebounds, 2.8 stocks a night, 50% from the field, 48% from three on 5 attempts a night, and he's getting to the free throw line 6 times a night. Now, if Denver thinks they're going to get priced out of Peyton Watson in the offseason, it would make sense to sell high, but he's playing way too good right now to trade him. Denver's trying to win the NBA Finals this year, and Peyton Watson would be a crucial piece to them winning it all. He's been better than Christian Brown. He's been arguably their 4th best player this year. He's been better than Cam Johnson. So yeah, the Pelicans definitely have some intriguing pieces to go out and get Peyton Watson. You have Sadiq Bey, you have Yves Missi, you have Jose Alvarado. I just don't think that's going to be enough for Denver to trade Peyton Watson away, unless you're trading away that 2027 Bucks-Pelicans swap, which you never know. Joe Dumars might do that. Jaden B mentions here for the Detroit Pistons that they need to go after a Michael Porter Jr. We need a consistent secondary scorer. And I got plenty of those for the Detroit Pistons. I got Michael Porter Jr. I got Trey Murphy. I got plenty of Lauri Markkanens and Kobe Whites as well. And I do think Detroit should go after a secondary scorer at the deadline. They're 33-11. They can make it to the finals for the first time since 2005. It's tough to take them super realistically to get to the finals, although I think they could be the favorite right now with the second-ranked defense. They have the 11th ranked offense, and when the game slows down in the playoffs, I don't know how that's going to fare to them. They're ranked 26th in three-pointers made this season, 17th in three-point percentage, 29th in free throw percentage as well, 29th in turnovers. They could really use somebody to help out Cade Cunningham, who's been dealing with a wrist issue, but has also been somewhat inefficient over these last few weeks. Michael Porter Jr. gives you a proven commodity. I don't think it's worth overpaying for Michael Porter Jr. because I think the Nets would be wise to sell high on him right now. Trey Murphy would be perfect. Every person kind of commented Trey Murphy for their team. It's going to cost like a Desmond Bane, Mikal Bridges type return for Trey Murphy, and maybe even more than that. But I would really like to see Detroit add another offensive weapon at the deadline, even if it's like an Ida Sunmu or Kobe White. CMB for 3 mentions for the Toronto Raptors. I really like the idea of Daniel Gafford or Trey Murphy on this team, likely RJ Barrett going the other way. I just don't think New Orleans is trading away Trey Murphy for RJ Barrett and plenty of draft capital. Like, it would cost you Colin Murray-Boyles, which I feel like any Raptors fan would say he's untouchable right now. But that's how high Trey Murphy's value is in this league. Trey Murphy is under one of the best contracts at the moment that he signed off his rookie deal. $25 million this year, $27 million next year, $29 million in 2028, and $31 million in 2029. It's not like Denny Avdia good in terms of contract value, but it's a top 10 contract in the league. He's 25 years old. He's 6'8". He's a 3-level scorer. He's super efficient. He's a solid enough defender. Yeah, this is going to cost you a king's ransom. Daniel Gafford makes a little bit more sense, but if you're going to trade away Jakob Poeltl in this deal and how negative Poeltl's contract is looking at the moment, the Raptors would have to kick in a first-round pick as well. I think like an under-the-radar center option would make sense for this team. I want to see it at full strength with RJ out there consistently, with Emmanuel quickly playing the way he's playing right now. I would trade away Ochai Agbaji for maybe somebody like Day'Ron Sharpe. Maybe you throw in your first-round pick this year. If Sharpe's value is really that high across the league, maybe you go after a Yves Missi for Ochai Agbaji in a first-round pick, because Mamu's been great for this team, and they basically gotten just one center this year healthy in Mamu. So I would trade away maybe cheaper contracts for somebody like Day'Ron Sharpe instead of making a big splash like Daniel Gafford or Trey Murphy, which is going to cost you a decent amount. This person mentions for the Houston Rockets, Dennis Schroeder and my dream target, Trey Murphy. Yeah, you can see a trend here. I would trade Jabari Smith away for Trey Murphy. Once again, unless you're trading away the Brooklyn first-round picks you owe going forward, Phoenix's first-round picks you owe going forward, and maybe another piece in this deal with Jabari Smith, that could get you Trey Murphy. I'm not overrating Trey Murphy. Like, you're going to have to overpay for him. You're going to have to pay what his market value should be, and even more for New Orleans to actually trade away this controllable asset going forward. forward. But Dennis Schroeder makes a lot more sense for the Houston Rockets at the moment. They could definitely use another point guard option. They haven't fully ruled out Fred VanVleet this year, but I'm just not going to be super optimistic about that. This would have to be some type of 3-team trade for a team to take on Dorian Finney-Smith, because I doubt they're going to trade away Steven Adams' matching salary. He's too important, even though he's hurt right now. So you'd have Dorian Finney-Smith go to a team that kind of needs a wing. You get Dennis Schroeder, and Sacramento maybe gets expiring money, maybe a tiny bit of draft capital, but nothing serious. And I do like the Dennis Schroeder shout for the Houston Rockets. Trey Murphy just is going to be unrealistic. Diego B mentions here for the San Antonio Spurs that they should go out and get Bobby Portis. And I think this makes a lot of sense for the San Antonio Spurs. I think they could use like that enforcer type player like Bobby Portis in that front court. They do have plenty of assets to give to Milwaukee. They could give them the expiring Kelly Olynyk contract, the expiring Harrison Barnes contract. San Antonio does have some draft capital to kick in this deal. Maybe Jeremy Sohan is in this deal as well, which could make sense for Milwaukee to maybe sell high on Bobby Portis, who's shooting a career best 46.5% from three this year. He's been healthy. He's been available. He's not a great defender, but hey, if he's playing with Victor Wembanyama in that front court, I think he'll be all right. And San Antonio has not really had the best offense as of late, with Dylan Harper and Stephon Castle struggling a little bit. Same with Harrison Barnes. Bobby Portis would be a nice cost-effective upgrade, and Portis is also under contract next year as well at a nice tradable $14.5 million. He has a $15.5 million player option in 2028. So say San Antonio was going to become a Giannis team in the offseason, Portis could be that matching salary, although they couldn't reacquire Bobby Portis, so it would just have to be in a 3-team deal, which makes sense. I don't think Milwaukee would want a 31-year-old Bobby Portis in return for Giannis. Nick mentions here for the Phoenix Suns, Saddiq Bey. The Suns need a bigger wing, but don't want to mess chemistry. Nick Richards and some seconds could be good. So yeah, that's what it costs for Saddiq Bey. I think he would be perfect for the Phoenix Suns right now under Jordan Ott. I think they would like somebody a little bit better as a defender. Like Najee Marshall would be perfect, but Saddiq Bey is a lot better of a shooter. Although Saddiq Bey is shooting 33% from three this year, his volume and his shot difficulty has been insane just because the Pelicans haven't really had a good or cohesive offense whatsoever this year. Saddiq Bey makes a ton of sense for the Phoenix Suns, given that he's making $6 million this year, $6.5 million next year. The Suns should not be trading away any first-round picks for Saddiq Bey at the moment. But yeah, like, would the Phoenix Suns be able to do a couple seconds for Saddiq Bey? They got a ton in the Kevin Durant trade. Would they trade away somebody like Rasheer Fleming for Saddiq Bey? Because you're not moving Kaman Watch. I don't think they want to trade away Royce O'Neal and what he's been for them this year. You're not trading away Ryan Dunn for Saddiq Bey. So if the Knicks offer pick 31, that's pretty valuable. You might have to kick in a decent amount of sec. For the OKC Thunder, they should go out and get Ayo Dosunmu. It's likely it wouldn't cost too much, and I think he would help us out a lot. I don't know his value, but preferably we'd trade Ousmane Dieng in one of our firsts to get him, or even needed Isaiah Joe instead of Ousmane Dieng. So yeah, this is what I mean. I think a lot of teams we talked about could want to go out and get Ayo Dosunmu, who's having a career year shooting the basketball and is an expiring deal. So if the Thunder were interested, they can almost outbid any other team. I think Ousmane Dieng is an intriguing young piece for the Chicago Bulls going forward. Why not take a flyer on the lottery ticket Ousmane Dieng could be? Plus, OKC has plenty of draft capital. They projected the 26th overall pick in the draft right now via the Rockets. They projected the 17th overall pick right now in the Philadelphia 76ers. I don't think they're getting the Clippers pick this year, but I think the Clippers pick is going to end up being closer to the end of the lottery or right outside the lottery if the Clippers do make it out of the play-in tournament. So the Thunder could move those picks. They have plenty of first-round picks down the line as well that aren't like super valuable. They have like a 2027 water-protected Spurs pick. Sure, that could go to the Chicago Bulls. And I just assume it gives them exactly what they need. Some versatility defensively, nothing great, but really a knockdown shooter. And the Thunder could definitely use another shooter, another offensive weapon, because right now with all their injuries, Shea has way too much of a workload and hasn't really had the best help in the world. That's why they're losing to the Miami Heat and the Toronto Raptors and the Charlotte Hornets. Nate mentions here, Andrew Wiggins returning to the Bay Area. I don't hate this idea as well. I think like Jonathan Kuminga and maybe your water-protected first-round pick this year for Andrew Wiggins makes a ton of sense. Miami can figure out over the second half of the season if they want to re-sign Jonathan Kuminga in the offseason or just pick up his team option. So it's essentially an expiring deal for the 2027 season. Plus, you'd get another first-round pick in this year's draft. I think that's a no-brainer for the Miami Heat. I think they should sell high on Andrew Wiggins right now. And it would be kind of hilarious with Andrew Wiggins returning to the Golden State Warriors after getting traded to the Miami Heat last year in the Jimmy Butler trade. This person mentions here for the Washington Wizards, Peyton Watson, with the hope the Denver Nuggets don't want to head into the second apron. So I mentioned this earlier with the New Orleans Pelicans. I think it would have to cost a decent amount for you to still go out and get Peyton Watson, somebody that's really taken the leap this year, who could end up as the most valuable player. Who knows? The Washington Wizards are obviously not trading away away their first round pick this year, but they have the OKC Thunder's first round pick, which is projected at number 30. Like, would you trade away Bilal Coulibaly for Peyton Watson straight up? I think you would definitely think about that. Could they include somebody like Will Riley or Justin Champagnie in this deal as well? Champagnie is under a great contract moving forward. I just don't think Denver, with the realistic chance at winning it all this year, will trade Peyton Watson unless you were completely overpaying for him over these next 10 days. And lastly, for the Minnesota Timberwolves, this person mentions go after Kobe White, which I like the idea of Kobe White. I just wonder, like, what is Kobe White's trade value compared to Ayo Dosunmu? Because Dosunmu's been better than Kobe White this year. He's been at least healthier, so maybe that's why Kobe White hasn't been perfect this year for the Chicago Bulls. Dosunmu is a better defender as well. So could you actually do Mike Conley and Rob Dillingham? Maybe you trade away Terrence Shannon Jr. in this deal as well. Could you do Terrence Shannon Jr. and Rob Dillingham? You keep Mike Conley. Chicago gets 2 former first-round picks from the 2024 draft. I just think Minnesota would have to kick in a future first-round pick in this deal, which they don't have many of. They gave up a ton in the Rudy Gobert trade. They gave up a decent amount in that Rob Dillingham trade as well. And right now their 2032 first-round pick is frozen after being a repeat offender in the second apron. So yeah, Dennis Schroeder, Kobe White, all those point guards make sense for Minnesota. If they do not trade for any point guard help at the deadline, Tim Connolly's doing a disservice to this team. So that's gonna be it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let me know if you agree or disagree with anything I said down below. Also, shout out to GLD again for sponsoring today's video. Link to them will be in the description. Thank you all for watching again, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.